I've lived on this land longer than most people have lived anywhere. My ranch stretches over 300 acres of rolling hills, pine groves, and wildflower meadows, the kind of place that feels like it belongs to no one but the wind, the sun, and the occasional herd of deer. I inherited it from my grandfather, who bought it decades ago when the world seemed simpler. Life here isn't glamorous. It's hard work. I wake up before dawn, check the fences, feed the livestock, and make sure the land stays healthy. People often imagine ranch life as cowboy movies, wide open spaces, heroic sunsets, but it's mostly long days, aching muscles, and constant vigilance. And yes, there's wildlife. Lots of it. Coyotes, bobcats, and bears. Lots of bears. Most neighbors understand boundaries, both legal and natural. But then came Karen. Karen is what you might call an HOA enthusiast, but with a capital K for Karen. She wears authority like armor, even though she knows as little about land laws as she does about survival in the wild. When she first knocked on my door, clipboard in hand, she smiled like she owned the county. That smile didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were scanning, measuring, judging every inch of my property for violations. I tried to explain to her that my land is private, that it borders a federally protected bear conservation area, that stepping beyond my fence isn't just rude, it's dangerous. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't listening. In Karen's world, rules are flexible when it comes to her convenience. The first few encounters were minor, complaints about tall grass or unauthorized structures. I responded politely, even kindly, but that was before she crossed the line literally. The boundary between my ranch and the conservation zone is marked, though subtly. Most people miss it because the forest grows thick there and the bears roam freely. But Karen, she stomped right past it, heels crunching over underbrush, not a care in the world. I watched from my porch, heart pounding, not from fear of confrontation, but because the bears were nearby, and one wrong step could turn her arrogance into tragedy. Little did she know, the land I care for isn't just mine. It's home to creatures that don't negotiate, creatures that don't read HOA newsletters. She thought she was in control. Nature was about to teach her a lesson. This exact style, covering every chapter in depth, escalating the tension with Karen, legal drama, and the bears encounter, until it reaches a full, dramatic story. Do you want me to go ahead and write the full story in one go? Or do you want it chapter by chapter so it's easier to follow? The first time I saw her on my property uninvited, I froze. It was late afternoon, and the sun was slanting golden across the fields. She appeared at the edge of my western pasture, clipboard in hand, boots sinking into the soft earth. "Excuse me," she called, her voice sharp. "I'm here to inspect your property. HOA rules state." I stepped out onto the porch, leaning on the railing. "Karen, again. This is private property. You need permission to enter." She waved her hand dismissively, the kind of gesture that seems to say, "I am above the law. I just want to make sure you're following the neighborhood guidelines. We have rules, you know." I could feel my jaw tighten. Rules. Sure, we have rules, but they stop at the edge of my property. Beyond that is forest, hills, and a federally protected bear conservation zone. I took a deep breath. "You're standing on my land. The bear area is right over there. One misstep, and it won't be me you're arguing with." Her eyebrows shot up. "Bears. That's ridiculous. They don't come near human settlements." I wanted to laugh, but the situation wasn't funny. "They come here all the time. You're on the edge of their territory. Step back." She didn't. Over the next few weeks, Karen's visits became more frequent. She'd appear early in the morning, inspect the fences, take photos, and mutter about violations no one else cared about. I tried reasoning, sending letters, even calling the HOA board. Nothing worked. One morning, I saw fresh footprints crossing the boundary line. My stomach sank. Karen had ignored every warning. She was close to the bear zone now. I grabbed my binoculars and watched her from the porch. A mother bear and her cubs were nearby. Karen had no idea. She was bending down to examine some illegal growth near the trees. The cubs sniffed the air, alert to the intruder. My heart raced. One wrong move, and she could provoke a mother bear. I grabbed my truck keys and drove toward her, waving my arms. She looked up, startled. "Oh, hello. I'm just. Get off the property." "Now," I said, my voice low, serious. She pouted, looking affronted. "I have rights too, you know." "The HOA." I cut her off. "Not here. You're trespassing. Do you want me to call wildlife enforcement?" Her face turned pale. Fine. I'll leave." But deep down, I knew this wasn't the last time. Karen never listened. It was a week later when it happened. I was checking the northern fence, near the thick woods that marked the conservation zone. I saw movement out of the corner of my eye, her again.
Karen.
Shoes muddy, hair wild from the branches, clipboard forgotten. She had crossed the invisible line. My heart sank. I shouted, "Karen, stop. Turn around." She froze, then laughed nervously. "I'm just..." A low growl cut her off. My stomach dropped. The mother bear had emerged from the thicket, massive and powerful, with her cubs trailing behind. Karen's eyes widened, finally registering the danger. I raced toward her, yelling. She took a step back, tripping over roots. The bear growled again. I reached her just in time, grabbing her arm and pulling her to safety. She screamed. Not at the bear, but at me, as if I had caused the problem. After that day, the HOA launched complaints against me, claiming intimidation and harassment. I laughed in disbelief. Evidence showed Karen trespassing on private property. I had photos, witness accounts, and even wildlife officer reports confirming she endangered herself by entering the bear zone.
Court day came.
Karen strutted in, heels clicking, hair perfect, eyes scanning the room as if she owned it. I presented my case, clear and concise. This land is private. She trespassed knowingly. She endangered herself near a protected wildlife area. The judge didn't even need to ask questions. The verdict was clear. Trespassers aren't above the law, and no HOA rule overrides federal wildlife protections. Karen was fined, warned, and barred from my property indefinitely. Even after the legal victory, I stayed vigilant. Karen tried subtle attempts to provoke me, calls, letters, emails. But the forest had its own lesson. One day, she was walking near a public trail that skirted my ranch, waving her phone for photos, when a ranger had to escort her away from a bear sighting. She never returned. I finally exhaled, walking along my fence line, listening to the wind and birds. The bears roamed freely, the grass swayed in peace, and the land was mine. Karen had learned the hard way. Some boundaries, especially with nature, aren't negotiable. More daily ranch life scenes, feeding animals, fixing fences, wildlife observations, more Karen's antics, escalating conflicts and petty complaints, detailed bear encounters, and wildlife, suspense courtroom drama, and HOA meetings, inner thoughts, emotions, reflections on land, law, and nature.